Welcome to the Wild Remedies podcast. I'm your host, Krysta, and I'm here to bring you captivating stories from some of the most fascinating people I've connected with on my own journey of physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Wild Remedies podcast. Today, it's just me. I'm doing a solo-sode. It's been a while. I've been meaning to do more of these, and I have a little bit more time to do them now. So I'm going to be doing more of them. And I'd actually love some feedback and some suggestions on things you guys would like to hear more of on the podcast. We're on Instagram, wild_remedies. You can also follow me personally on Instagram. My handle is Magick, Magick.maven, and connect with me there. I would really, really love to hear from you. Today, I'm going to be talking about plant communication, learning to talk to plants. And let me just preface this that I might sound kind of low energy today. I have been going through it lately. We're entering eclipse season, and it's been a lot of up and downs. And today, I don't really fucking feel like showing up, but I thought about it and I was like, you know what? I think there's some good medicine in telling you guys this story today. So I'm just doing it, just showing up, even though I don't particularly feel like it. But I was kind of going through my old notes and stuff. I have a bit of a funny memory. I don't like to say that I have a bad memory because I feel like that kind of prophesizes it. But I have a bit of a funny memory. And part of the story that I wanted to tell you guys today, I needed to go look back into my journal to kind of remember all of the points so I didn't miss anything. And yeah, it's really made me feel kind of the medicine in this moment. I feel like reviewing, actually what I found most interesting is that I landed at a point in my journal almost 12 months ago, which was eclipse season back then too. And some really wild stuff was happening in my life. And I'm reading about the feelings and the things that I was experiencing at that point. And I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah, feeling that again, real hard right now. It's, it can be tough to move through some of those lower or more dense energies, but ultimately it gets us to the other side where we're meant to be, to feel a little bit more liberated or bring clarity. I think that's a really big thing for me right now, is just clarity. I'm feeling kind of like at the end of my rope with a few things. I have just been craving ease and stillness, and fuck, I want to move on to some land so bad, y'all. I don't want to hear traffic anymore. I mean, I'm in the middle of Kelowna, which I don't know, for anybody that's not familiar with the area, it's a beautiful place in British Columbia, Canada. And it's just becoming more and more busy. I've lived in this area most of my life, and it's changed a lot. And it's kind of like one of those situations like Austin, Texas, right? Where people discover that it's a cool place to be, and then everybody moves here, and the real estate prices get driven up, and all of the things, and traffic. And this used to be a quiet retirement town. And it certainly is not that anymore. And more I'm feeling that really weigh on me, as well as just like having stuff. I feel like I am burdened with a lot of stuff right now. I don't know if I've really talked about this story much, but when I kind of started my healing journey, or my initial awakening, about a decade ago, I guess around like 7 or 8 years ago, was when I sold all of my shit and moved to the other side of the planet. Yeah, it was kind of one of the most liberating things I'd ever done. And it was interesting because I've been going through a lot of stuff in that past year. So I used to own an ad agency. I'm a designer, creative person by trade, and I had an ad agency in Kamloops where I used to live, and had this crazy tumultuous year of falling out with a business partner and getting, well, a former crazy client attempting to sue me over like the most ridiculous thing. Like, it was just like so many dramatic things. It was actually during my Saturn return. For anybody that is familiar with astrology, when you're around 28, 29 years old, generally some really tumultuous things happen in your life in order to help you grow up. And that was definitely my experience at that time. It was so much drama, so much drama. But it ended up in a lot of realizations, and I ended up just literally selling everything, like gave my business away to another ad agency, sold my car, sold pretty much all of my belongings, got on a plane and moved to Malaysia to go work for a company called Mind Valley. And I didn't even know where Malaysia was on the map. I was like, I think it's somewhere by Thailand. And then I nomaded for years after that and lived out of a suitcase. And I'm kind of craving that again, sort of, kind of a hybrid of that. I want a home base, someplace that just feels calm and nurturing, and, like where I can just walk outside and be in nature without having to drive to it or whatever. I don't even want to have to walk across the road. I just want it there. I want to be living in the fucking forest. But also still have the ability to do some traveling. I haven't traveled in so long, you guys. I wasn't able, I'm still technically not allowed in the US, being, an unjabbed individual. And so the last time I traveled was literally right before shit show happened. And that was a huge part of my life for a while, and kind of missing it for sure. So we'll see what this fateful next month or so brings with eclipse season. I'll have to have Vika back on the podcast maybe to chat about that. She does a monthly report and a monthly new moon report for us over on the Wild Remedies Instagram and TikTok. If you guys haven't tuned in yet, you should check it out, and maybe she'll mention eclipses. But basically, doorways of fate, opening and closing. Big stuff happening. So yeah, kind of looking forward to that. I need a big change. So this podcast today is to kind of share the experience that I've had in the past year on deepening my relationship with plants. One really cool thing about this business, Wild Remedies, is that it has taught me more about who I am and my purpose than anything I've ever experienced before. It has not been easy. I built this entire business based on following the signs, following the universal signs. So this entire business is a spiritual practice for me. Which seems kind of crazy, right? Like, who builds a fucking business because God told you to, or spirit, or whatever you want to call it, right? It's really what it feels like for me. And at a really pivotal point right now, something needs to change in the business in order for it to continue in the direction that I thought I wanted it to go in. But at a moment where things are uncertain, but not necessarily a bad thing. And yeah, a big part of what I'm really grateful for with this business, because a lot of times, you know, especially with business, it's like we feel that the purpose of it is to bring a level of physical, success of some sort, purpose, legacy, that whole thing. And, I still hope that is part of the story of this business, but it could also be, and I know it is a big part for me, is self-discovery. And I've always had a love and a passion for the natural world. I definitely lost that connection for a while. Quite a while, actually. I remember being really young. Actually, a lot of the memories that I have, it's really interesting. A lot of the memories that I have of being a child are tied to a plant or something of some sort. Like, I remember, I spent a lot of time growing up. I'm originally from northern BC, Fort St. John. And we didn't move down south until I was 10. And my grandparents had a farm. And my sister and I spent a lot of time there when we were little. I had a pony, just like the best thing ever. And loved the farm. Like, it was just such a magical place because it was huge and there was so much to play and explore and all the things. And back then, you didn't have helicopter parents and you could just run around and do whatever the hell you wanted when you were 5. Like, my grandparents didn't care. And I remember the teeny tiny wild pansies and the teeny tiny wild strawberries that we would pick. And my grandma's huge, well, to me at that time anyway, because I was little, her garden and picking carrots. Had really strong visions of that lately too, and had really interesting recurring dreams about the forest that was behind where the horses were penned. So it's very, very interesting revelations to have, realizing what a big part that nature and plants have played in my life. I recently took a course by Cammie McBride, who she's coming on our podcast, but not till like next year because she's like so busy and sought after. She's a really big name in the herbalist world. And I took her plant communication course recently. And it was just like so, there were so many ahas, so many aha moments. And a lot of it was like recalling memories, right? There's a lot of us plant people out there who have had really deep connections to nature, and it just kind of seems normal to us, and maybe something that we don't even consider. And when it's talked about and you recall some of these memories, it's like, oh, wait, wow, like that is actually quite significant, and not a lot of people do this. Like, I'm the type of weirdo that like will literally run across a field or something because I see a flowering tree and I'm just like, oh my God. Like, I just get so excited. I have to run over and like touch the flowers and smell the flowers, or pretty much almost crashed my car, like stopping on the side of the road because I see some fucking golden seal growing. And I'm like, is that golden seal? Like, I'm still kind of learning, and I need to go touch it and check it out. And it's just such an exciting thing for me, which could be really maybe weird for some people, but I think folks that are kind of attracted to this podcast might be those types of people. So I thought I would share this information with you guys, and if it resonates, use it, because this is part of our healing, right? Getting back in touch with nature. We are nature, and there's so many different ways to heal not only ourselves but the planet as well. So about a year ago, oh gosh, I can't remember what episode it is. I'm going to pull it up so that I can reference it and you guys can go back and check it out. But I had one of my intuitive mentors Heather Crow on the podcast. Was it about a year ago? Let me see. Let me just pull it up so I can let you guys know. Okay, so it was episode 11, the one about psychic coaching, light language, and star seeds with Heather. I had started working. Check out that episode, first of all. It's amazing. She's amazing. I highly recommend working with her. She's such a beautiful soul and has helped me in so many ways. But yeah, I started working with her about a year ago. And right away, when we first chatted, she was like, "Oh man, like you and the plants, you and the plants." And I was like, I don't know, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I love the forest. I love, she's like, no, like it's a really big thing for you. Like this is a big part of your purpose. And I kind of felt a lot of relief when she said that. I was like, oh, I like that. I like that. That feels really good. And at that point, I had this company, Wild Remedies, for several years and huge passion for being outdoors and whatever, but I hadn't really explored herbalism and all of these things. Like I love plants and there were so many different botanicals and things that I use in my own healing. And at that point though, my research was not superficial. I knew a lot about, well, to give a little bit more context, in human design, I'm a 1-3, which is the establisher of knowledge and truth. It means that I like to research a lot and I like to experiment. And I think my health challenges have been a big container for that. And it's kind of how I developed the products that we currently sell, right? Like we use these water soluble plant extracts because with my research and because of my health issues and all the things, I learned that this is the best way to consume some of these medicinal botanicals in a form that is easy to use, right? And anyway, I totally just went on a tangent. Heather was telling me I was very connected to plants. And she essentially said, the plants are talking to you. Are you listening? And I was like, what? What do you mean? She's like, the plants are talking to you. Are you listening? And I'm like, I don't know. Like I've never had a plant say hello or like I don't like what the fuck are you talking about, crazy lady? Like I have no idea what you're talking about. But I thought it was really interesting and kind of left it at that. And not long after meeting Heather, I got connected with, and oh my gosh, I want to have him on the podcast. He's super hard to nail down, but I ended up signing up for forest school. It's with this wonderful teacher, Dawn, not far from where I live here in Kelowna. They have a beautiful sanctuary and a few pieces of property that are just absolutely beautiful. And they teach all kinds of really cool mystical stuff. So they teach about plant communication in a sense and wild crafting and how to heal within nature. And one really amazing concept that I just think is so amazing is the fact that we're all suffering from something called nature deficit disorder. I'm not going to go too much into that because I feel like Don's going to come on the podcast soon and we will talk more about that. I'll let him explain it. But it is honestly like one of the biggest things, health issues, I think that we are dealing with right now is that lack of connection to the natural world. Just the frequencies and the terpenes and things that are released from the forest, from the trees, from the plants, being grounded, right? Like the frequencies that we should be absorbing through our feet while we are in the natural environment that we're meant to be in. All of that stuff is highly medicinal, and we are really disconnected from all of that. And even myself, like, I'm a busy entrepreneur. I'm on my laptop all the time. I'm managing a bajillion things all the time. And I probably get out into the forest more often than most people, but it's still not enough. It's not enough. And I'm really, really feeling that. And that's why I'm just so, so, so desperate at this point. It feels to just leave, go get onto land, right? Be immersed in it. I was just in Vancouver for a week doing this huge trade show and doing demos at Whole Foods every single day. But I was staying in this Airbnb that backed right onto the forest. And for anybody that's been to Vancouver, we know how magical those rainforests are. And there was a creek that was running that you could hear through the window in the bedroom. And man, did I sleep good. Even though it was such a busy time and I talked to like 6 bajillion people throughout that week and had so much running around and stuff, like I felt really good. And I came back to Kelowna and I was just like, nah, this isn't it for me anymore. I need to make a change. But yeah, that's literally the medicine in the forest, right? Just taking, like, breathing in those chemicals that are released. Even just, one form of plant communication is just that aspect of being fascinated when you go into the forest or you look at a lake or whatever it is. But when you get like that feeling of awe, that is communication. So that was one of the things that I started to recognize at forest school. We were introduced to some of these concepts. But that was also when I kind of got my first big communications. So we spent a few days, doing some stuff at one of Dawn's properties, learning about different meditations that you can do to connect with plants and, for healing and all sorts of stuff. But it was a lot of like indoors learning stuff. It was raining a lot. But then on like the 3rd or 4th day, we went to a place called The Claim. And it was one of the most magical places, experiences that I've ever had. It was so potent. There was a group of us and we got into a few vehicles. So this place was further up the road, up into the mountains a little bit. And it's a location that is just a beautiful sanctuary. And the plan for the day was to go to this location and do some ceremonial work with a few different plants. So we all got piled into a couple of vehicles in the morning and drove up to The Claim. And it was interesting because we kind of experienced something like a rite of passage. So as we were driving up the forest, what do they call it? Forest Service Road, a tree had fallen. And luckily, one of the people in our group had like an intuitive hit that she needed to bring a saw with her that morning. She hadn't had it. We wouldn't have been able to enter. And so we had to hand saw this tree that had fallen into the middle of the road. And that's actually quite an ordeal. So a handsaw isn't really that efficient. Luckily, we had like very wild, crafty people that have done like, survival skill courses and all of those things. And so they knew to make like a lever, and we had to like shove another log underneath this tree and jump on it while we were sawing. It was like a whole thing, but we managed to cut it and move it enough out of the way that we could drive through. And it really did feel like this thing that we had to do as a group in order to like pass this boundary to get to this magical space, which was really cool. And I'm just referring to my journal, my notes, by the way, because I don't want to miss any of these little details because it's all really interesting. One thing that I had mentioned too, so as we were starting to drive to this location, my throat chakra, like my throat area, was starting to feel really weird. And again, this is about a year ago when we just started the podcast. And through my work with Heather, we kind of identified that there was this blockage in my throat chakra area, and having a podcast like this, using my voice, was actually a really medicinal thing for me to be doing. But this was kind of at the beginning. So I was still feeling for years, and actually this hasn't happened in a really long time, but for many, many, many years, I would notice when trying to express myself or having long conversations, almost felt like I had a lump in my throat, like when you're about to cry, almost like that emotional sort of thing. And it made it really uncomfortable for me to speak. I don't get that anymore, which is really cool. But anyway, on this day, as we're driving up to this magical place, the Claim, I started feeling my throat chakra kind of like wigging out. And the woman, Cindy, who was driving, she just happened to have a crystal, a ball of hematite. And she's like, here, roll this around on your neck. So I'm like, okay, like holding this crystal up to my neck. And yeah, that was super funny. But that part ties into the story a little bit later. Once we got close to the Claim, some really cool auspicious things started happening. So we managed to make it through the rite of passage. We're driving up the road and we're just about to enter the Claim, which, oh my gosh, it was so cool. Like, it's just so hidden in the forest. It's just like a very small little road that's off of the FSR, the Forest Service Road, just nestled in the trees. But there was a clear cut. So there's a lot of logging that goes on around that area, unfortunately. But in that logging clearing, we saw 2 bears. There was a black bear and a cinnamon bear. And so we stopped to watch the bears. And there was a lot of talk about animal totems and bears in particular. Some of the people that we were studying with have worked closely with the local First Nations, and their traditions and stories with bears are that bear is brother, right? So it's not an animal to be feared. It's not an animal that is even hunted. It's brother. So that was a really, really cool experience. And as we drove into the Claim, this land, we're driving through like this tight little road with trees everywhere. It's just so enveloped. And then it kind of opens up and there's this cabin. And then these 2 huge, beautiful cedar trees that they've named the Sisters. And the vibes there, y'all, oh my gosh, you get out, there's a river that runs through the property, and it was quite flooded last year. So as we kind of explored the property, it was this very surreal kind of landscape because the river had flooded all through the forest. And the forest in this area, it's like it looks kind of similar to the rainforests on the coast, but they're the interior rainforests of BC. So a lot of cedar trees and things like that, moss, a lot of devil's club and some ferns. And so it's like quite lush. But with the water flooded everywhere, it was just such a cool, surreal experience. And the frequency was just like so calming. I almost fell asleep like 5 times while we were there. It was just so beautiful. But those trees, they were just so beautiful. And after hanging out there for a little bit, we started our first ceremony. So we did 3 different ceremonies. One was with tobacco. One was with cannabis. And then the third, which technically isn't a plant, but it was with vodka. So spirits. And it was really interesting. So these were kind of different traditional ceremonies. 2 that were more indigenous to North America, and the third was more indigenous to Europe, right? So I have European ancestry. I'm half Ukrainian, half French. And it's interesting, a lot of us European folks, we've lost a lot of our traditions. A lot of that happened kind of through the witch trials, right? The witch burning, all of these things. A lot of our traditions that allowed our people to connect with nature, a lot of this happened through women. And with the nightmares, the atrocities that happened through the rise of patriarchy, a lot of those things have been lost for us. And so we're kind of at this point where I know for myself, I've been looking for connections to what my ancestors used to do to connect to the land. And, in my case, I've had to take from lots of different wisdom traditions. And because of where I currently live right now, the indigenous people here are the ones that are kind of closest to what I have access to. And so there are definitely some, learnings and things that have been borrowed. And I think it's important to, still try to connect with what is part of your ancestry. But I think it's also really beautiful that we do have the ability to learn about the wisdom traditions from lots of different cultures. Anyway, I digress. Let me get back to the ceremony. So the first one is the tobacco ceremony. Now, I have a very tumultuous relationship with tobacco. Started smoking at a fairly young age. I think I was 13 or 14, something like that. And, we have a lot of addiction in my family. And it's been a tough one for me to quit or kick. Like, I've had periods of time where I have quit, and then something really tumultuous happens, and then I'll start again, or I'm vaping instead of smoking and thinking that that's better for me. But it was just really kind of like this, I think of it as like a pacifier, wasn't even much of a physical addiction. It was more of a mental thing. I'm happy to say that I feel like I'm finally free from that, but it was a process of me just like having to quit everything, right? Like, I'm not drinking anymore. All of those things that were kind of like crutches in a sense had to go in order for me to be fully liberated from that. But tobacco, is interesting. It's been used traditionally in a lot of ceremonial work. The plant itself, as it was described to me in the ceremony, has a really big ego, as does cannabis. And you can see that in the aspects of addiction that get passed on to humans when they consume this plant. We all know people that have relationships to tobacco and even cannabis. Like, cannabis, you don't see as many people being addicted, you think. I mean, there's a lot of information going on right now about like how great cannabis is for you, but honestly, I feel like it can be detrimental, especially if you have an addictive relationship with it. So those plants really need to be respected and used more in a ceremonial sense. I know for myself, I use a little bit of cannabis. I can't handle a lot of it. I actually have a really high tolerance to most things, but weed fucks me up. Like, I'm like a one hoot, like, and that's all I can handle kind of person. But I do really enjoy it for connecting to nature. So I feel it can be an ally in that sense. But if it's used to numb out and all of those things, might be, the type of relationship that needs to be re-examined. But back to the tobacco ceremony. My gosh, you guys, I'm like a squirrel today. The tobacco ceremony was really, really beautiful. And we worked with with real tobacco leaves that one of our facilitators grew in her garden. And we really just spent time connecting with it. So like touching the plant, smelling the plant, thanking the plant. And then with all ceremonial work, intention is so, so potent, right? And, if you study anything to do with quantum physics or the law of attraction, all that stuff, like we know that intention is everything, right? It creates our circumstances in life, and the body even cannot tell the difference between a thought and something actually happening in the physical reality. So it's incredibly important. And we also learned about a new way to consume this plant in ceremony. So traditionally, First Nations, and at least in the context that we learned it in, you didn't actually smoke the tobacco, you gulped it. So like you swallowed it in a sense. So you would bring the smoke into your mouth and then you would swallow it. And in this ceremony, we were asking for something specific. And for me, I was asking that plant, the spirit in that plant, to provide connection and integration. So we rolled up a little tobacco cigarette and I lit it. And as I kind of took my first gulp, a little fly came and landed right on the very tip of that cigarette and just stayed there and it was buzzing and vibrating the whole thing. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, how is this thing not on fire? Like, what, what is it? Like, it was right on like the fiery part. But it was just, it was such, like, it was a sign, And this is one of the ways that we can have communication with nature, right? So this wasn't, it was directly through a plant, but the sign and the symbolism came in another way. And to me, it just felt like very profound. I was like, wow, okay, like somebody's listening, So that was a really cool experience. And not long after, we embarked on our cannabis ceremony. So again, sitting in circle and just having reverence for that plant, understanding the ego aspects of it, and asking, to have more connection. Again, my intention was connection, communication. So inhaling those things and then exhaling doubt and fear. And I wasn't really sure what to expect. But in this case, we inhaled the smoke from the cannabis. We had a joint that we passed around, or no, we all had our own joints, I think. Anyway, I went past my rule of one toke and I took a couple and started to get that feeling, right? When you smoke too much weed and you start feeling like, a little bit anxious and, oh my God, okay, am I going to make an ass out of myself? Am I going to have a freak out? So, and I really started noticing these thoughts spinning and I was like, fuck, like I'm too high, da 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 da. I'm also used to smoking weed like by myself. I don't usually do it in front of other people. And so that was making my mind go. And I really noticed, I was like, okay, there's the ego, right? There's the ego of that plant trying to kibosh this beautiful spiritual fucking experience that I'm trying to have here. And as I was starting to freak out, the smoke from the fire that we were sitting around wafted into my face. And it made me have to get up and move. And then kind of that, anxiety started dissipating. And then the leaders of our group asked us to go out into the forest and go commune, go see what happens. And then at that point, I was like a kid in a candy store. I was like, yay, okay, awesome. I can move now. Like I can go, I can run around in the forest. So we struck out into the bush and just kind of each did our own little thing. And, there was no specific instructions. It was just see what happens. And I have a special relationship with cedar. There's just something about cedar for me. I feel like it's a huge ally. Every time I'm in a cedar forest, it's just, I don't know, it feels like home. Um, so I ended up approaching a big, beautiful cedar tree. There were so many. And I didn't really know what to expect. Like I was kind of hoping, like, I don't know, like I wanted to receive a message of some sort, but I was like, I don't know, this is kind of silly. Like, I don't think this is really going to happen or whatever. But anyway, I just kind of put my hands against the trunk of this tree, and it was the craziest thing. I just had this message or this overwhelming feeling. It was like a word. It was like a word that just popped into my head, and it was initiated. The word was initiated. And I just started sobbing because I knew it wasn't me. And it's a really funny thing to try to describe, because trying to distinguish a thought or a feeling that isn't your own, even though it's coming to you in the way that a thought or a feeling normally would, like it just, there's a different texture or quality to it. And it was just so profound, and I was just filled with so much gratitude and emotion. Like it was like I was just welcomed into a family, and I just sobbed. And I was in complete disbelief that I was having this experience. I was like, wow, okay, this is what Heather was talking about. Oh my God. And this is how messages come. Like, they don't physically fucking talk to you. You know, there's messages that can just enter your mind, or feeling, emotion, intuition, um, all of those things. Those are different ways that the natural world can communicate with us. So at that point, I was just like, oh, I'm great. Okay, this is an awesome experience. And I just kind of used some more time to kind of just explore and play. And then I kind of walked up to another cedar tree, and I was like, I want to see if it'll happen again. Not really thinking that it would. I was already so grateful for the experience that I had. But I walked up to another cedar tree, and I put my hands on the trunk. And then I got another message. And it was, welcome home. And again, I was just like, like crying. Oh my God, what just happened? Like, this is so majestic. And it was just such a beautiful experience. We ended up going back to the campfire after we had our little adventure, and we're sharing our experiences. And this is where that whole throat chakra thing comes back into play. So as I was coming close to my time to share my experience, I noticed my throat starting to act up. And it was kind of like scratchy. And I was honestly having a hard time talking, which was really weird. It was like some kind of demon or something. I don't know. It was just like, no, I don't want you to share your experience. But I did. I pushed through it. And I started crying. And I'm not the type of person, like, in human design, I'm a non-emotional. So like I have a lot of emotions. I'm a Pisces moon. Like, there's a lot of shit going on underneath, but like I don't like expressing emotions in public very often. So crying in front of people that like I just met wasn't really a comfortable experience for me. But it felt really good. And as I shared my experience and I saw like other people crying when I was talking about my experience, it was just, that to me was such a big part of my healing, right? So with this throat chakra center, I feel like I have a lot of trauma in the past from being silenced. And anytime I'm able to express my truth or my experience and it's received, it's a way to heal that part. So I thought that was such a beautiful, beautiful thing. So after I had or shared my experience with the group, Another one of the participants shared her experience, which just kind of solidified everything to me. And this was kind of a funny part of the story. So this woman joined us a little bit late into the retreat. She had actually flown up from the States, somewhere down in the US, and she just kind of seemed to like not really fit in. It was funny. So her story was that she recently did a plant medicine ceremony and it blew open her psychic gifting. So she went from not being able to see spirits and shit to like being able to see spirits and shit. And I think she thought that we were doing something different. She wanted to learn more about plant medicine, and to her, plant medicine was psychedelics. The plant medicine that we were working with, though, was not psychedelics. All plants have a spirit, and we weren't working specifically with psychedelic inducing plants. So it was so funny because she was just like, I mean, we're all forest people that just love being in nature, and I've shared about how I'm always touching everything, and I love being in nature. And this lady was not like that at all. It was so funny. She was just like, I don't like touching trees. Like, it's just not for me. And we were like, what are you even doing here then? It was so funny. Anyway, she was a really good sport. But she was sharing about her experience on cannabis when she went out into the forest. And I mean, because she, has psychic abilities, you would expect that her communication would be quite profound. And I thought it was really interesting that she had a similar experience to me. So she had shared that while she was in the forest, she felt compelled to touch a tree, a thing that she would not normally do for whatever reason. And she said that she touched the tree and received a message. And it was, "We've been waiting on you." And I was just like, full body chills. "We've been waiting on you." My messages were all about being initiated and being welcome home. And hers, a woman that, has not a lot of connection to the natural world, and receiving that, "We've been waiting for you to come home and to work with us and to talk to us," was just so profound. So profound. The final ceremony with vodka. So this was a traditional Slavic Russian tradition. So the Russians would use vodka as a way to commune with spirit. And what they would do is kind of drink into a frenzy, right? They would get everybody kind of into this frenzy, and they would have a person that was wrapped in a buffalo hide in the middle of a circle while everybody else was working up into a frenzy and yelling, calling out to spirit. And then there would be a person that was walking around inside the circle with a drum, and people would shout out to them different things that they would want to communicate with spirit. And then that person would shout out to communicate with spirit. And then the person in the buffalo skin would receive the messages or the healing or whatever it is that they were focusing on. And so that was really cool. I got to participate and be wrapped up in a legit buffalo skin, which was really neat. But a really cool experience that happened was one of the participants in the group had a tumultuous relationship with alcohol. And so we just took like one small shot to have the energy of that spirit in us. But she was really leery to do so. Granted that she clearly had an issue with that substance at some point. And so she was kind of like, oh, I don't want to do it. And, the leaders were like, totally understand if you don't want to have it, like, it is kind of important, but like, totally get it. And she was like, yeah, I feel not great about it. And she was one of the first people to kind of go into the buffalo hide. And she kind of popped up at one point and was like, no, I want it. Like I do. I want to participate. I'm going to take it. And the shots had been poured kind of before we had started the ceremony, and they were in the middle of the circle. So Don went to go and grab the remaining shot glass, and he picked it up, and he looked at her, and he's like, "It's empty." He's like, I don't know if I just didn't fill it or whatever, but he's like, it's empty, right? Like, it's not for you. So just so many cool magical experiences. And even on the drive home, it was so wild. So it was like a good 45-minute drive from, Dawn's place to the claim. And it's a busy highway. That entire drive home, we didn't pass a single vehicle. Not one. Not a single vehicle. It's almost like we were in some sort of like portal. So cool. So cool. Yeah, so that's my story of how I kind of started on that journey of communicating with plants. And since then, I've had so many wonderful experiences, and that have really led me to create some really beautiful, potent products that I'm hoping to launch here soon, one day. I've been working with cacao recently, and it's really interesting. Cacao is such a heart-opening plant, spirit, substance. And I can tell the difference from like the region that this medicine comes from. Just by a sip, I can be brought almost to tears and feel it immediately. So that's kind of the sensitivity that's been opened, which is really cool. Really, really cool. And since then too, chatting with Heather, she's like, man, you have so much fairy energy now. And we talked a lot about this at Forest School. I'm so excited to have Don on because he talks about Sasquatch and, elementals and fairies and vortexes and like all of this cool shit. It's interesting. Like there's definitely something to it. But yeah, she's been telling me I have all this fairy energy lately. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. She's like, yeah, you need to start working with fairies. I'm like, again, what the fuck are you talking about? How does that work? And I'll probably figure that out at some point and share that with you guys. But I actually had another really interesting kind of, I don't know, contact with somebody recently that connected with me to do some creative work for them. And she happened to be a medium. And we had a call, and we were just talking business the whole time. But at the end of the call, she was like, oh, by the way, I just wanted to let you know, you have like dragonflies and shit flying around you. Like, you have such big fairy energy. And I was like, cool. Like, I don't know what that means, but like, it's neat. Like, fuck yeah, fairies. I've always loved, fantasy and sci-fi stories, and just stories in general, I think are really potent and beautiful. And yeah, I don't know what that means yet, but I'm here for it. I'll take all the fucking fairy energy. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've rambled on a lot about my experience, and I just wanted to share that with you guys because I think it's important for us to build a deeper relationship with nature and not just kind of use her, right? Mother Nature, we've been using her, and we need to learn to commune, right? And it really is just more stillness and listening and feeling, right? Tapping into our intuition a little bit more. So before I wrap up, I'll just share a couple of tips that you can do to start more of an intentional relationship. And for me, trees are something that I really love connecting with. I mean, also flowers and herbs and all the things, but trees are a really good way to start. And one thing that you can start to do right away, and it's really easy, is a resin meditation. So, you know how some trees you can see kind of like this amber, crystalline, oozy stuff come out of them. So, this is the part of the tree. It's kind of like, it's almost like tree blood, right? So, when there's a wound of some sort, resin will flow from the tree. And so, what you can do is to create a deeper connection and also healing for yourself is to find a resin tree. And you want to approach the tree with reverence and touch the tree, talk to the tree. I talk to plants and shit all the time. Like, this was another thing that I never realized until I actually realized it. But like, when I'm out in the forest, like, I'm talking to everybody. I'm touching everything. I'm like, oh, hi, whatever, tree, plant, I have to touch everything and smell everything. And like, I didn't even notice that was a weird thing. Or like a thing that probably a lot of people don't do. And it's something that I've always done. And now I realize why, because I'm a plant person. But anyway, letting the tree know your intention. I do believe that there is a consciousness to trees. There's another really phenomenal person that I'm reaching out to hopefully have on the podcast. She is a forest researcher here in British Columbia, Canada, and has decades and decades of work and research into how forests actually work. And through her research, she discovered that, oh my God, everything is interconnected, and plants communicate and trees communicate, and they help each other, and they have families, and like, it's a whole ass thing based on science. So it's legit. Have reverence, be cool to the trees, talk to them, they're listening. But anyway, you want to approach and connect either the top or the back of your head to the resin that is dripping down. If it's dried, it's probably going to be a little bit more comfortable for you because that wet, sticky resin, when it gets into your hair, it's kind of hard to get out. But whatever, it's good. It's medicine. And you just want to rest your head against that resin and connect with the tree. So you can do that just with your imagination. You can imagine what it's like maybe to be at the top of the tree and seeing the viewpoint, or the roots, especially the roots. So much medicine there. Connecting your feet. If you can be barefoot, even better. Connecting your feet, your bare feet, to the roots of a tree is so, so, so medicinal. And just merge and try to find stillness and see what messages come through. And it could be a thought, it could be a feeling, it could be a realization, emotion could come out. There's so many different ways that communication can happen. But that's a really simple way to get started. So if you're still listening at the end of this podcast, thank you. Listening to my crazy rants on my very emotional, weird day. Let me know what you think about this episode. I'm going to do more weird shit like this. I have a bunch of really cool stories. I want to tell more stories for you guys and share more about some of the crazy stuff that I'm going through at this point, because I feel like it's relatable and can maybe help y'all. So thank you for listening. And I'm excited. Next week's episode that I'm recording is with Veda Austin. She has such a beautiful relationship with water and how water communicates. So make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss that one. It's going to be so, so dope. And connect with me. Let me know what you think. More. Let me know what other stories you want me to tell you. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks so much for sharing your time and energy with us today. We'd love to hear your feedback on how our podcast has impacted your life, and are also open to suggestions for new and interesting topics. Please leave your comments with a quick review to help us grow this magical community of wellness warriors and light workers. Every month, we select one lucky reviewer to win our big Magick box, containing all 3 of our beautiful Magick lattes. To connect with us further, check us out on Instagram at wild_remedies. Thank you again, and see you at the next episode.